Welcome to another in a series of District 5500 Grant Management Educational Seminars. My name is Bob White, and I am the current District 5500 Global Grants Subcommittee Chair. If you are here, it is most likely for one of two reasons. You are either interested in knowing more about Rotary Global Grants, or you are seriously considering initiating a global grant application and want to know where best to begin and what to expect. In either case, you have come to the right place. I have been working with Rotary's current grants program for over 8 years, and during that time, the one question that comes up constantly is, where do we begin? During the next 30 minutes, I hope to answer that question and provide you with a realistic assessment of what it will take on your part in terms of both time and preparation to successfully get a Rotary Global Grant application approved. Just to be clear, this briefing does not replace the longer and required District 5500 Grant Management Seminar, nor is it intended for someone that has already successfully completed a Rotary Global Grants application within the past 2 to 3 years. It is specifically intended for District 5500 Rotarians that are interested in becoming a global grant sponsor, either host or international sponsor, for the first time. I will focus on how to go about successfully preparing to open and submit a global grant, and most importantly, on what sort of commitment in terms of both time and effort you should anticipate. We will not be spending any time here on how to manage and or close out a global grant. That is a topic for another time, but frankly, if you do the preparation that I will be suggesting, there won't be any surprises when you get to that stage. There are essentially two ways to participate in Rotary's Global Grants program. The most common way, and the one that most of us have had an opportunity to join in, is to make a cash contribution to another club or district's global grant project. It is easy to do, has minimal club participation, and aside from any delays in getting their application approved, it is not particularly time sensitive, nor does it take a great deal of preparation or effort on your part. Therefore, it is really the best place to get your feet wet, so to speak, without taking on all of the work and or risk of jumping into a global grant sponsorship role right away. Making a site visit, volunteering to be a reader or external evaluator for someone else's global grant can be a real learning opportunity in getting ready to take on your own global grant in the future. The second way, which is the one we are here to discuss, is when a club decides to take an active role in a global grant project and become either the host or international sponsor. The host lives in the country where the project will take place, while the international sponsor lives in another country. In most cases, a District 5500 club will be the international sponsor. The essential difference between these two approaches is that by becoming either the host or international sponsor, you are becoming fully responsible to the Rotary Foundation for all grant related activities that do and or do not occur. Not every Rotary project is eligible for global grant funding from the Rotary Foundation. So let's start by taking a minute to briefly review what it takes for a project to become a global grant project. In the broadest sense, the project selected must be related to Rotary's mission of advancing world understanding, goodwill, and peace, and include active participation of Rotarians. It must conform with Rotary's terms and conditions for district and global grants. It must support activities that align with at least one of Rotary's 6 areas of focus goals. It must have a projected budget of at least $30,000, although many projects run well over $100,000 or $200,000. Your project must also be of benefit to a community based on the needs identified by that community. And finally, the project must be sustainable. Rotary's intention is that the community will be able to carry on the project and better address their own needs after your Rotary Club has completed its work. In addition to selecting the right project, there are a number of things that you and your club must also accomplish before you are eligible to tackle a global grant. First off, your club must qualify every year. Without getting too deeply into the details, there are essentially five things that a District 5500 club must do. At least two club members must participate in the District 5500 Grants Management Seminar. The club must be in good standing as defined by District 5500 bylaws. That is, the club has no outstanding indebtedness to Rotary or to District 5500. The club president-elect must have attended PETS. Both the president and president-elect must agree to sign Rotary's qualification memorandum of understanding, and the club must have appointed a Club Rotary Foundation chair. Additionally, if you are going after a global grant, then you must also actively engage the benefiting community. You must partner with a Rotary Club in the country where the project is to take place. You must build a comprehensive physical plan that includes a detailed budget. Most important for humanitarian projects, which most of ours will likely be, you must complete a community assessment. Stated another way, this simply means that you must convince Rotary that your great idea for a project is not only yours, but is also the benefiting community. It is something that they, the community, want and that they are willing to work with you to achieve. Okay, so you have done all that. What you really want to know at this point is what is it going to take to get your application approved? The answer is very straightforward and not really all that surprising. To have a successful global grant, it takes only two things: time and commitment. Unfortunately, many first time global grant participants grossly underestimate the time and effort needed to successfully prepare for a global grant. Don't be misled. Writing a good grant application and gaining Rotary Foundation approval are the short straws in the stack. Further, remember, grant writing is an ongoing effort that doesn't end with the first good draft. There will be recommendations from your local reviewers, your partner clubs, and the Rotary staff. This should be expected and not a source of discouragement. Be open to their input. You don't have to accept all of it, but it will help you to clarify vague references and understand where an alternative view or approach might be seen by others. As for time, virtually every successful global grant I have reviewed over the past 8 years needed more than was initially anticipated to both gain approval and to complete. Putting together a project within one Rotary year is by far the exception to the rule and not the rule. Project planning simply takes longer than that. And when projects do move quickly, the answer always seems to be the same. The project sponsors kept the scope narrow and had prior experience with global grants. Here is what I observed as to time and commitment needed. Planning is everything. It takes time to identify a need, scope a project, gain community approval, and prepare a realistic budget. Additionally, the 1 to 2 months that I estimate here for Rotary International staff to review is somewhat misleading. In my experience, when you take into account the additional time needed to answer new questions and new suggestions raised, 2 to 3 months is a much more realistic normal. On top of this, you will need to do some initial fundraising. All of this should be initiated and mostly completed before you even put pen to paper and open a global grant online. Therefore, you and your club must realize that you are committing to a project for the long haul. This is not something that you start one year and move on to something else the next year. The primary contact for the club should plan to be in place for several years. The membership on the sponsoring host and international committees should each also see their positions in the same manner. Okay, if it only takes time and commitment, how do we begin. Start by doing your homework. Even if you already have a project in mind, and I assume that you do, there is a minimal amount of reading and research that you need to do before you begin. This can be done before you contact anyone else and should be done well before you consider opening your global grant application. The first three items on this list can be downloaded directly from my Rotary website, and the last three are District 5500 specific items, which can also be downloaded, but in this case from the District 5500 website. Rotary's areas of focus policy statement lists those eligible and ineligible activities that qualify for a global grant. Remember, as I stated earlier, not all good Rotary projects qualify for Rotary Foundation funding. This is where you can find out if what you are considering doing meets Rotary standard. Terms and conditions for Rotary Foundation district grants and global grants clearly states Rotary's administrative guidelines for participating in the Rotary's grants program, at least from the Rotary Foundation's perspective. While districts can add requirements to these guidelines, they may not waive any of them. So a very important document if you wish to understand eligibility, restrictions, funding, and how to apply for a global grant. The last of these three, a guide to global grants, is the To Do Global Grants resource. The Foundation got it right with this publication, so take the time to read it closely. While it doesn't dwell on the administrative details like the previous two documents, it does give you a very good step-by-step explanation of putting together a global grant application and project. Read it closely, and it will send you off to a number of other useful publications as well. The last documents listed here are District 5500 specific policy documents and need to be read closely because they lay out all the special requirements that must be met by District 5500 clubs in order to qualify for a global grant and to obtain any District 5500 DDF or district designated funding for your project. Once you have completed your initial reading and research, it is time to start thinking about where you can get specific advice and mentoring as you proceed with your global grant effort. Start locally by contacting your District 5500 Global Grant Subcommittee Chair, that's me, and talk over what you have in mind. We may not be able to meet personally, but a phone call or email exchange often works just as well. That also goes for the others on this list. Not only may we be able to provide you some clarity to any of the questions that came up during your reading and research, but we may also be able to recommend another club with an open or successful global grant that might be willing to mentor you along the way. At Rotary headquarters, based on your region, based on the region you have selected, you will want to make direct contact with Rotary's Regional Grants Officer. This is your main Rotary contact and the most important person in helping you through the application process. Ultimately, you will be dealing with this person directly and more often than anyone else, either within our district or at Rotary headquarters. Be sure that you request a pre-review from this person as soon as you have a reasonably good draft for them to work with. Also, because it is unlikely that you or anyone else on your immediate circle will be a technical expert in every aspect of your project, Rotary has put together a team of technical advisors that evaluate large projects and can therefore offer technical expertise in just about every area you can think of. Don't be afraid to use them. Another useful resource I found for consultation about project design initiatives and grants are Rotary's area focus managers. There are, not surprisingly, 6 of them, with each focusing and having a portfolio responsibility for one of Rotary's areas of focus. It is now time to start putting things down on paper. There is no need to open your global grant application online, but you may do so if you would like. Just keep it in the draft phase. What you really need to do at this point is to initially clarify what it is you intend to accomplish with your benefiting community. For me, that means building an executive summary that describes the benefiting population, the need, and your goals and objectives. This will help you clarify your ideas so that you'll be able to share them with others. Once you have it, translate your summary into the host country language and then keep modifying it until you write and submit your application. Keep it to one page. You need to decide on your timelines, build your budget, put your committee team together, both home and abroad, and plan for continuity. It is important that the budget is done early as it will lead to your fundraising goals and help to define your outcome measures. It is often a budget item that doesn't seem tied to the project, like a piece of equipment, that will catch the attention of your Rotary headquarters reviewers. They are looking at your budget very critically to ensure that all of your anticipated expenditures are justified in your documentation. Get on with your community assessment. Involve the benefiting community early will help save you work down the road. It is surprising the number of cases where Rotarians thought something was the most important need of the community, only to find out that in the community's opinion, it is not what they wanted to work on. Scale your project to something that you can accomplish, especially if this is your first effort. Make it something that you can see accomplished within a reasonable time horizon. Finally, get out there and start publicizing your effort. You are looking for both commitment to the project from friends and other clubs, as well as looking for confirmation that you are on the right track. It doesn't work if you have a good idea that goes unsupported or unfunded. Speaking of fundraising, it is as much about salesmanship as it is about fixing a need. Every opportunity should be taken to get the word out. And if you haven't spoken with your District 5500 Global Grants Chair, that's me again, about applying for District 5500 DDF, this would be a good time to do that. District 5500 has its own policy on sharing the limited amount of DDF available, so you will want to have a good understanding of the requirements if you are counting on district DDF to support your project. It isn't critical to have a final commitment of financial support from everyone and funding before you open your global grant application, but it is essential to have that before you lock your application. So the sooner you get your finances sorted out, the better. So, what happens when you open your application? Well, nothing actually. This is where you are given the time to fill in the template and to review. This is a good time to ask questions of others and for any clarification of your input from the regional grants officer. He or she is the application expert at this point. But please remember that the regional grants officer does not officially review your grant until it is submitted. Locking your application after your final review is an important step because once it is locked, and you can make no further changes without requesting the regional grants officer to reopen it for you. This can especially be a problem if you have errors in your funding section concerning who and how much is to be contributed to your project. The most important thing you should take away from this brief is that global grants are not normally accomplished quickly. Only rarely are they started and completed within a single Rotary year. Frankly, global grants are really not very hard to do. They're really quite easy. Grant applications are most often denied only because the project doesn't fit any of Rotary's 6 areas of focus, the project has a high risk of failure or isn't sustainable, the project benefits another non-Rotarian organization's programs, or a satisfactory community assessment was not accomplished. So, at the end of the day, just realize that most of your time will be spent in the pre-application phase. Filling out the online application and gaining foundation approval takes relatively little time. The regional grants officer will often be able to complete their review within just a matter of weeks, but that only happens when the pre application legwork has been done successfully and completed in advance. Another thing, in my opinion, it is very important that you not only have an active and functioning committee on your end, but also within your partner clubs and uh, in the international community. Both clubs need to interact regularly and not just during the grant writing. I have seen too many projects that begin to wither and fall apart with the passage of time and personalities. Don't let that happen to you. So let's get started. Remember, whenever you believe you have completed your homework or at any time you just want to talk about global grants within District 5500, just contact one of the folks on this slide and they would be very happy to discuss with you whatever it is you would like to accomplish. With that, that concludes this brief. Good luck. Get out there and do good in the world.